car is like your first love. You just never forget it. But the fact is, getting your driver's license, it's tough today. Well, how many hours you got to put in now? Is it 50? Is that right? You got to put 50 hours in. That's crazy, totally crazy. I'm going to find out how badly the rest of you want to drive, so just play along with me for a minute. You want to get a driver's license, okay. Before you do it, you should probably know some basics. How many of you who are not have your license yet, how many of you know the difference between the brake pedal and the gas pedal? How many of you know the difference? All right. Okay. One ignorant army kid. Okay. I want to know how you know the difference. How many of you know the difference because you went online and looked? Please don't raise your hand if that's true. Hopefully you didn't go online. How many of you actually said to your mother or father in 8th grade or freshman year, Mom, Dad, can you tell me the difference between the brake pedal and the gas pedal? Okay, 2 people, all right? Not too bad. How many of you knew it when you were a kid? How many of you would say a lot you learned by watching your moms and dads? For better and for worse. How many of you have parents who speed? How many of you have parents who do not use their turn signals? How many of you would say, I'm probably going to be a better driver than my parents? Holy cow, that's a lot of hands. All right, check it out. I thought the same thing you did. I thought the same thing you did because, check it out. My dad, well, let me tell you, my mother's perspective. My mother said, I was almost born prematurely multiple times. Because my dad loved to speed. And my mother said, well, my dad, please do not do this. My dad, I guess, loved to go as fast as he could, hit the railroad tracks and see if he could get his car airborne. This is the father I would learn driving from, okay? So as the driver's ed teacher is saying whatever they're saying, here's my dad. Yes. Yeah, yes. Here's my dad, right? I'm learning all this watching my dad. I'll never forget, I used to think I was smarter than my father, and you do. How many people are pretty sure you're smarter than your mother and father? Pretty sure. You will be smarter than your mother and father until college, then you realize they're smarter than you think. But I remember in 8th grade, what I realized is my dad wasn't cool anymore when I got to be 8th grade. I realized it one day when I saw my dad cutting the grass. My dad was cutting the grass, he's wearing shorts, gym shoes, and dark black dress socks. Like, oh my God, my father is a dork, all right? My dad, though, my dad would teach me many things, some good, some not so good. I remember thinking I was smarter than my dad, and I realized we had a Chevy Impala station wagon for the adults there, 1973 Chevy Impala station wagon, which is like from the bleachers to here. I mean, it's like a boat. So, my dad is not using his turn signals. A bunch of you said your parents don't either. And he's like, and I said to my dad, Dad, you gotta use your turn signals, you gotta check the blind spots. My dad's like, son, let me explain something to you. I'm like, okay, Dad. My dad says, son, this car is like a boat. I go left, I go right, it's for the cars behind to pay attention to which way I'm going. I learned from that, right? We learned from our parents. Our parents set us on a road a long time ago when they were just driving. Anybody ever sit on your parents' lap and you would get to steer and you thought you were actually driving? Yeah, a bunch of us did that, Our parents have been teaching us driving. Some good habits, some not so good habits. There's something else our parents have been teaching us. Some good, some not so good. We've been watching our parents live their faith. Some good, some not so good. Some of our parents are very serious about their faith, and you know that. And that's why they're so serious about you being involved here at St. Peter's in this program. Some of your parents, they go to church every weekend. Some of your parents, they go to church during the week. Some of your parents say the rosary. My wife's grandparents prayed the rosary from World War II, when the time my grandfather came back from World War II, all the way until Grandma died, which was just a month ago. So for 73 years, they played the rosary every single day before dinner. Every single day. Maybe your parents pray the rosary. Or maybe your parents aren't into the really obvious devotions of the church, but they pray and they're serious about their faith and they try and lead a moral life. Or maybe your parents who maybe have fallen short a little bit, they don't go to Mass every Sunday. Maybe they're struggling in their faith. Maybe they're angry at the church. Maybe they're angry with God. And we see all the good and all the bad. We watch them. Your parents, I'm sure, are doing the best job they can. When we got baptized, our parents set us on the road of faith. And now your parents have been responsible for trying to show you the way. So what do we need a sponsor for? Here it is. Sponsors are people who are living their faith. They're on the Catholic road and they're driving down the Catholic highway and they're living their faith and they're going to serve as a role model for you. Who will you pick as a sponsor? Well, that's easy, Mr. Grossman. The person who's going to give me the nicest confirmation gift. That's one way. I actually know people who do that. They're like, they're rich, come on. They're going to be a great sponsor. What craziness is that? You know what? Why do we got to pick a sponsor who's living their faith? Because that's what they're doing. They are already in the church. They're already living their faith. They're supposed to serve as a role model for us, so we get these sponsors. If I was going to pick a sponsor, you can't do this now. It's frowned upon, or maybe it's even against canon law now, I don't know. But when I was confirmed, I picked my father as my confirmation sponsor. Yeah, you can't pick a parent anymore. You got to pick someone else who's going to sponsor you in the church. If I was getting confirmed today, I would have picked my grandmother, my Polish grandmother, Lottie Machowski. Lottie Machowski was an excellent Polish woman. She came from Poland when she was just a few years old. They settled on a farm in Wisconsin. Check it out. Girls will appreciate this. When my grandmother was 15, she left home. I mean, you can't even imagine leaving home at 15 nowadays. She left home and she went to Chicago to get a job so she could send money back to her family at 15. At 16, my grandmother got married. Don't do that. When my grandmother was 16, she got married. That was a different day, girls. Don't do that now. She got married to a nice 20-year-old man, and they had a family together and children, and he died before my grandmother was 30. My grandmother had a hard life. My grandmother got remarried. Her second husband died by the time she was 40. My grandmother had a hard life. My grandmother did not whine about her life. She didn't complain about her life. Because my grandmother had an incredible faith. She always realized that no matter how hard life got, that she was going to live her faith stronger and better than before. My grandmother understood that Christians, your life doesn't get easier by following Jesus or being part of the church. But what we have over other people is a sense of hopefulness. My grandmother realized you don't get saved from suffering. Instead, we get saved through our suffering. And my grandmother suffered a lot. When my grandmother was 45, she got debilitating arthritis so badly she could no longer work. For the second half of my grandma's life, she was in pain and suffering. And yet, she never gave up on God. Her faith continued to grow. My grandmother eventually moved in with us. My grandmother moved in us, and back in the day, you guys, you did not get dessert unless you ate all your vegetables. Anybody else grow up like that? Anybody else grow up like that? That's how I grew up. You know what my mom would do? My mom was tough. You know what my mom would do? She would put the dessert in the center of the table, so you know what you would be missing. And I'm one particular night, I'm about 12, I'm supposed to eat my green beans before I get my fudge-striped cookies that my mother placed. I wanted those cookies. These fudge-striped cookies are sitting in the middle of the dining room table. Green beans in front of me. I hated everything green. It tastes like grass. But I decided, I got a strategy, you guys. I took my green beans and I cut them up like little pills. And I start popping these green bean pills and swallowing full glasses of milk. I think I filled up on that milk because I couldn't eat all my green beans. Here's the thing, you guys. I thought, I ate half my beans, what should I get? Thank you, I should have had, whoever said that, I should have used my attorney. Because you see, no way, not in my house, not when your mother is Polish, your grandmother's 100% Polish, and your dad is German and Russian Jew. I got the Eastern Bloc of Europe for all my cookies. There'll be no cookies for Grossman. And I, of course, I'm so ticked off because had I known that it was an all or nothing proposition, I would have had none of the green beans. I go storming away from the table thinking my parents are the Antichrist. And I go storming away from, I'm gonna go pout in my bedroom because I think my parents are jerks. And as I get back to my bedroom, I hear my grandmother, Lottie Machowski, she calls out to me, she's like, Johnny, come here. I look down the bathroom hallway, and there's my grandmother. She's hiding in the bathroom, which is kind of creepy. But when you're 12, you do what Grandma says. So I go walking over there. I'm not making this up. Totally true. I make the mistake of getting too close to the entrance because as I lean into the bathroom door, my grandmother's arm comes out. She grabs me, pulls me into the bathroom, slams the door, and sits down on what clearly is her throne. So now I got my Polish grandmother sitting on the toilet. I'm in the bathroom with her. This is awkward. Oh, it's worse than that, okay? Well, this is what probably the parents can truly appreciate. She's wearing a house dress. Do you guys even know what a house dress is? Okay, some of you are nodding. It's like this big flowery house dress you wear like around the house, and she's got like knee-high nylons falling down to her ankles, you know, and she's wearing like this hairnet. I guess she had shampooed her hair. I don't know why you gotta wear a hairnet, but she's got a hairnet on. She's got these big, high, Polish cheekbones, and she's just giggling on the toilet. And I'm like, I want this over with. And I think my grandmother, of course, is just gonna like yell at me for storming away from the table and being rude. Because what grandmas do, they reinforce hopefully what parents are doing. So I'm standing there and I'm like, Grandma. And he's like, what's this got to do with confirmation? I'll get there, buddy, relax. So I'm standing there and I'm like, Grandma, what? Waiting for her to yell at me. She starts giggling like a schoolgirl. All right, I feel even more uncomfortable. I'm like, what, Grandma? And my grandma looks up at me and this is what she says. Lottie Mahowski. She looks at me and she says, Johnny, Johnny, Johnny. Yeah, Grandma? She says, you came close enough. What are you talking about? She reaches into her dress pocket, pulls out a fudge stripe cookie she had smuggled from the kitchen. She holds up the fudge stripe cookie and says, Johnny, take the cookie. For crying out loud, you came close enough. Of course I took the cookie. I gobbled it up right there in the bathroom. And then we left one at a time so there'd be no suspicions, of course. And I thought on that day that my grandmother was the most wonderful woman in the whole world. And she was. But when you get older, you guys, this is what happens. You start thinking about stuff and what it really meant. See, I would pick my grandmother, Lottie Mahowski, as my confirmation sponsor because my grandmother on that day taught me what God's grace looks like. My grandmother was the best Catholic role model I could ever think of. My grandmother, not by being religious, listen to me and look at me right now, this is so important. Not by doing something super religious. Sneaking a fudge stripe cookie into the toilet? Really, Mr. Russman? That's the confidence. Yes. My grandmother taught me. My grandmother was religious. She said the rosary. She had a little, what's called the Infant of Prague in her living room. My grandmother when she couldn't go to church anymore, she watched Mass every Sunday on television. My grandmother was Catholic, but she didn't have to be preachy to be Catholic. My grandmother's greatest religious lesson she ever gave me was giving me a cookie I didn't deserve. You see, because John Grossman, I can't do anything to earn God's love, not a thing. When I die, I'm going to heaven. But not because I'm a great guy. Not because I'm holier than anyone here. Not because I'm not a sinner, because I am. My grandma taught me we don't earn our way into heaven. My grandma taught me, even though I didn't deserve the cookie, my grandmother saw through to my heart. My grandmother saw the good boy inside who tried, who ate half his beans for crying out loud. And my grandmother saw the heart and said, close enough, you've earned the cookie. You have someone in your life that while they're not perfect, they might not be some Bible banker. They might not use Jesus language all the time. That's not what we need for a confirmation sponsor. In fact, those kinds of people are fine, but the people I think that are going to make a difference in your life are the real raw people. The people who screwed up a little bit in their life. The people who are short perfect, but they know it. The people who know that they're a sinner and messed up. I'd rather you find someone who's a recovering alcoholic in your family, who's messed up and knows it. Someone who's lost their job. Someone who knows that they don't have anything but the mercy of God working in their life. Find someone like that, and you've got the best sponsor you'll ever find. You have to find someone who's practicing their faith, I know. But the most important thing is you know someone